Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for three. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
It's magical. It's spiritual. How can you not be romantic about this game? Just something like that. A couple of guys, Waylon Abuaho was in tears on the sideline. Connor Pay scooting around in tears. Like it's a special experience, man. And doing it at home makes it even more fun. It was fun. It was just unbelievable, man. That's something that's going to be talked about for a long time, especially in my household.
Welcome on in to Cougar Sports Saturday. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte coming to you live one day after BYU takes down Oklahoma State in a miracle finish. And yes, Jake Retzlaff, it was spiritual. It was romantic. It was everything. BYU is 7-0. We're going to be with you over the next 3 hours, breaking this game down, checking in on college football throughout the day. Matt, so much to unpack on this loaded Cougar Sports Saturday where the Cougs pull off a miracle.
We'll be talking football for the next 3 hours, breaking down this game, and because it was such a monumental win, we're doing something we've never done on Cougar Sports Saturday, Mitch. We're opening the phone lines, baby.
Load them up.
It's like a hybrid Cougar Sports Saturday, Cougar Nation. We want to hear from you. For those of you at the game, we want to hear your experience on that final drive, your thoughts on what that meant for BYU football going forward. So light us up, 801-575-8255. Also, Mitch, text us your thoughts on our question of the day. Do you believe this team will win the Big 12 Conference? I love the question you asked Kalani last night, which was starting to feel like a team of destiny in a lot of ways. How they keep winning these games in different facets as well. So, man, we got a lot to get to today. It's going to be a blast.
It's going to be so much fun. You can interact with us throughout the show on X and, of course, on KSLSports.com, KSL News Radio app. But let's get into the leadoff.
The starting lineup. A look at the stories making headlines right now. It's time for the starting lineup on Cougar Sports Saturday.
BYU 38, Oklahoma State 35. 73 seconds were left. BYU fans, I think you felt down and out. You felt like, no. Oklahoma State puts together a 17-play drive. They take the lead 35-31. And you decide, okay, you're going to take your first L of the season. The undefeated ride is over. But Jake Retzlaff, Darius Laster, Chase Roberts, they had different plans as the Cougs get that win.
It was an unbelievable moment. A fantastic win, Mitch. I love that they found a way to win despite not playing a great football game, and Kalani felt the same way.
We just got to keep improving, getting better, but can't deny the opportunity for us to celebrate the win. It was good for the program, good for our team, good for the offense, and good for the players.
Man, one of my first takeaways from that, Mitch, was teams that win Big 12 championships, they win games like this. Even teams like Texas last year that was in the playoff. They had scares along the way to winning a Big 12 championship, but you find a way to do it. 2 years ago, TCU, who could forget that craziness down in Waco where they're running their field goal team with no timeouts. They just ran them onto the field and kicked the game-winning field goal. This stuff happens. It's not reasonable to expect that every single week you're going to win comfortably, you're going to win by double digits en route to a championship. That's not how it works. You have to find ways to win tough games when you do not play your best football. And so there's still a lot of football left. I don't want to crown him a champion yet, but it really does start to feel like this team is capable of winning a Big 12 championship because one of the prerequisites, you have to find ways to win games when it looks like you can't win that game, and they did so last night.
What's amazing, too, about that win is typically Kalani teams, they've had a great body of work when it comes to big wins. You think back to Wisconsin, there was the win against Utah in 2021 just a couple weeks ago when you take down K-State. I thought last week against Arizona was a big win. So many big victories in the Kalani Sitake era, Arkansas last year. But none of those wins had a last-minute drive. Typically, BYU's teams under Kalani, when they're put in that spot, they just don't get the job done.
Yep.
They come up short. Think about Coastal in 2020. They just come up short. And for this group, and again, 6-0 and riding high, we've all been watching the games. This team's good, but when you put it in the context nationally, people still think, not really sold on BYU. And there was low expectations coming in, and it's Jake Retzloff, it's Darius Lassiter, guys that were not viewed as anything as far as like all Big 12 potential guys or NFL guys. And they manufacture an iconic drive in BYU football history. That last drive will live in BYU history forever. I mean, Dave Broberg and the marketing team, the creative team, just go put the banner inside the concourse. Go put the signage in the halls at LES,
right,
at the press box, in the team facility. That's an all-timer. That's a win that will create generations of BYU fans. I thought BYU, when they had that post on their official team account, it's right. I mean, that's the type of win that just – it is so memorable. It kind of reminded me a little bit with the 1984 team there last night. Was that their version of 1984 Hawaii? Oklahoma State's not a great football team. I'd be surprised, honestly, if they go to a bowl game. But the thing is, you took their absolute best shot. And the Oklahoma State team that people thought they would be in the preseason, that showed up on Friday night. BYU took their best haymaker. Defense didn't perform great, and we'll get to all of that and unpack it. But for BYU to rise to the occasion, win a game that typically Kalani Sitake teams don't win, that's what makes that special. And you maintain a perfect record, and you control everything in front of you to pursuing a Big 12 title, the playoff. It's all there. And this team's magical. Suddenly you're having that conversation that this is a magical football team. And it's been a long time since you could talk about that with BYU.
When you talk about the magic of that game-winning drive, I instantly thought of a lot more times than you just referenced in the Kalani era where that was unsuccessful. Notre Dame in 2021, You drive down, you get stuffed on a 4th and 1. Earlier in the Kalani tenure, that his first year, Taysom's drive at Utah, stuffed on the 2-point conversion. West Virginia, you try to mount a late game drive on the road in the nation's capital. That comes up short. Most times in college football, in that situation, it doesn't pan out. And I love your point because it's a good one. That's why this is memorable. That's why it's going to create a generation of new BYU fans. And that's why BYU, I think, should feel like they are a favorite to get to Arlington because they're finding different ways to win. They've had multiple games this year, Mitch, where the defense has made plays late in games to get you the win. SMU, the defense had a stand on an SMU final drive. Baylor had a final game-winning drive opportunity. Crew Wakely intercepts that. Now the offense responds. And that drive, man, we got to break that down a little bit because there were so many impactful plays on that drive. I thought that was a masterpiece by Jake Retzloff. His awareness on that 4th down conversion. If you look at that replay, Chase was not wide open. He missed Chase when he was wide open. And to throw it across his body and fit it into that window, his scramble, I thought, was the most impactful play of that drive because if he goes out of bounds, they're still 50 yards away.
It's a great point because the play before, Keanu Hill hauls in a catch, and it's a gain of 2. He's inbounds. He tried to get out of bounds, and you're just thinking, this isn't going to work.
No.
Like, look, I know the team, they always believed, but for me in the box, I'm thinking, that's one you just bat it down, Kibo. Bat it down because the timeout's more precious in that situation than just getting 2 yards. But then Jake, creates with his feet. 9 carries, 81 yards in the game. Jake has always been a dual-threat guy, but he's been better than anyone thought, I think, on the ground this year. He's taken hits, and he's still getting upright. And then they clock the ball with about 19 seconds left. And then it's 2nd and 10 from the Oklahoma State 35. Initially, the play was intended for JoJo Phillips. Darius Lassiter makes a play, and BYU, bad tackling by Oklahoma State, BYU gets the victory in LES. That was just magical stuff, Matt. I mean, that is stuff that just adds to the aura. It was S-tier level excitement, magic. It was incredible. It was great stuff. I can't believe that this BYU team got it done, and it's pretty special to witness it.
Absolutely. And I think Jake didn't play his best game, Mitch. He was 13 to 26, 2 picks. I mean, the one at the end of the first half wasn't that big of a deal, except for it could have been disastrous if they return that to the house and get 6 points on it and then get the ball to start the third quarter. However, Jake, to me, his self-confidence, his ability to brush off the mistakes, that's one thing you have to love about Jake, is that he doesn't get down on the mistakes. We saw that a little bit last year, where even in the Oklahoma game, he throws that 99-yard pick six, tries to chase him down, comes back and leads them down on a scoring drive on the next play. That is a tremendous quality that Jake has, his ability to put bad plays in the garbage can and keep playing. Because I thought when he came out, and there was that first pass where that was nearly a turnover when the ball got jarred out of Darius Lassiter's hands. I just felt like, I don't believe it's not going to happen. Yeah. And then at 4th and 8, I'm like, I just don't feel it. I don't believe it. But then it just changed so quickly, and it's just a magical trait by Jake to always put that bad play in the past and continue to believe.
Here's Oklahoma State head coach Mike Gundy on Jake Retzlaff's performance.
And then
the quarterback broke out
hit
on
a
30-yard
guy down there, and
scramble.
and then they hit a guy down there, and we missed 3 or 4 tackles, and he scored a touchdown. I mean, I couldn't see a lot from across the field, but I kind of wish we'd have got him down at that point. But the quarterback made a couple plays. Good player.
That's high praise from one of the great coaches in this league. If you don't think he's a great coach, look at what he did in this game.
He coached through a battered eye. He battled the cattle.
Besides what happened to him during his bye week, your new starting quarterback, Garrett Rangel, is running all over BYU on a 54-yard scamper where it just feels like BYU is against the ropes. He gets hurt. You got to go back to the guy who got benched, and your star running back, Ollie Gordon, who just loves playing BYU apparently, in and out of the game, banged up. You're missing so many defensive players. He hit the Pokes within a play of upsetting and spoiling what is becoming a great BYU football season. And then he goes and says, Jake, despite not playing a great game, is a good player. If Mike Gundy thinks that, I think all of Cougar Nation, BYU fans can start to respect that Jake is a good quarterback in the Big 12.
And Gundy's a good barometer because he saw Jake last year. This was the first time BYU had a repeat matchup as a Big 12 member against someone in the league. And so Gundy's seen both sides of the spectrum and the development from Jake Retzlaff. As the Cougs 7-0, we're going to continue to break this down. We'll read your text too. But before we get to a break, we got to talk about Beehive Mills. It's fall season. You saw it last night. The weather, it's changing. It's crisp air.
It changed on a dime.
It took a massive turn. But perfect time for Beehive Mills, the best meal prep service in the state.
Yeah. They specialize in preparing convenient slow cooker freezer meals designed to simplify dinner for busy families. October is an insanely busy month. Halloween's coming up. This football team demands time and attention because they're having a great year. And so you need dinner to be easy. And that's exactly what Beehive Meals does. Listen to this menu, Mitch. The October family-style menu. Barbecue chicken, always good. Chicken enchilada soup. It's soup season, baby. Cracked chicken, Mississippi chicken.
That's my favorite right there, Mississippi chicken. I love that one. It was really good.
Yeah, that one is great. Sausage Alfredo, cheeseburger mac, to name a few. It tastes great, but it's convenient and easy, Mitch.
And it's one of the fastest growing companies, and they also, they make it easy. They give you the chance to be able to spend time with your family, and then you can just go to the cooker and be able to eat that meal together as a family. So Beehive Mills, proud sponsor here of Cougar Sports Saturday. We're taking a break. We'll get to more of your texts as we continue to break down BYU's big win over Oklahoma State, 38-35. Breaking it down next here on KSL News Radio.
This is Cougar Sports Saturday. Number 13, BYU, improbably wins 38-35. They had a 0.8% chance of winning that game at one point on the final drive, according to ESPN's probability predictive model. And yet they found a way to make enough plays on that final drive to get the W. And we want to hear from you, Cougar Nation. You can call in 801-575-8255. Give us your thoughts if you were there at the game. What was that like? The euphoria of BYU scoring in the final seconds of the game. You can also text us at 57500. Those thoughts as well, or answer our question of the day. Do you believe this team will win a Big 12 championship? And
86-51.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Big BYU fan, but nope. 9-3.
Okay. They maybe not will not win the Big 12 championship. Sure. 9-3 though? Where are the 3 losses? Folks, you want to play the schedule game now. Every game, BYU might be playing the backup quarterback. In every game, UCF is trotting out their third-string quarterback today, Ja'Cory Brown. Utah's got Isaac Wilson. Kansas, Jalen Daniels, we'll see. He's probably the one starter, the holdover, but he's playing poorly.
He's been banged up a lot in his career, too.
Arizona State getting crushed by Cincinnati with a backup quarterback. Sam Levitt's out. We'll see how long he's out. And then November 30th, Houston, Z and Chris, he gave them a bit of a spark, but backup quarterback for Donovan Smith. Where are the 3 losses? BYU's not losing at home to Kansas or Houston. So you're going to tell me it's maybe UCF, Arizona State could be a loss, maybe Utah? I don't see 3 losses, man.
Utah is always hard to predict because it's a rivalry game. However, I have a long-standing belief, and I've shared it many times on this show, if you're trotting out a true freshman quarterback, that's not a place you want to be. BYU's had a mixed bag with true freshman quarterbacks over their tenure. Even Isaac's brother, Zach, his freshman year, there were moments of greatness, but there were some painful losses in there as well. You do not want to be starting a true freshman quarterback. That's an advantage to BYU.
I guess credit to 86-51. Mike Gundy does agree that anyone can beat anyone.
Oh, I mean, I've said it for a couple years, and I've said it in the summer, and I'll say it again. I think that any team in this league is vulnerable on any day. I think that there's guys in this conference that know how to coach football, and there's players in this conference that know how to play. And based on how the ball bounces and a turnover or two, just about anybody can beat anybody, in my opinion.
That's fair. And that's also why, Mitch, this win was so big, because you want to save that stumble if one happens for a little later on in the season. Because remember, BYU still got the tiebreaker over Kansas State. The longer you can go without the loss gives you a little buffer to maybe stumble next week at UCF or lose the rivalry game. And if you win out, you're probably still going to Arlington. So he's not wrong, but the teams that BYU has left on the schedule, they're going to be favored in some of these games. Like the rivalry game is probably the one left where you feel the least comfortable with, but it's really shaping up nicely for BYU.
Texter 5128, do you think Kalani ever considered letting Oklahoma State score to preserve more clock time at the end of the game? Didn't feel that way, but no. Tommy Parasis missing that tackle on Presley worked out well because giving BYU
you lose
a little
that game
bit extra,
if he makes that tackle.
Yeah. I mean,
because they're scoring a touchdown on that drive.
In the moment, Tommy probably felt down and out missing that tackle, but it worked out. It was just fine because they needed all that time. A minute 13 was plenty. And Jake Retzlaff said he loves 2 minutes, favorite part of football. So I think it was a good thing, but it didn't feel like BYU was going to say, hey, let him score. I thought they kind of should have. But Parasis, unintentionally, he let that happen, and it worked out for BYU.
Because if he makes the tackle, it's right at the sticks. He probably gets a first down. Some clock will come off. They punch it in, and then there's not enough time. So it's, yeah, I don't think he did, though. To the texter's point, I don't think he did. Cougar Sports Saturday brought to you by Any Hour Electrical, Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Taking a break. News, traffic, and weather coming your way. On the other side, We'll catch up with a former Cougar Sports Saturday member, an emeritus member who did sideline last night. Robbie Bullo gives us his perspective for being on the field in the win against the Pokes.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for three. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
This is Cougar Sports Saturday, breaking down a huge BYU win over Oklahoma State, 38-35. I don't even know where to go with this. There's so much to discuss. Let's touch on the defense a little bit because they've been so brilliant all season long, Mitch. That was a tough performance last night for the defense. Do you know that all of Oklahoma State's scoring drives were like 75 yards or longer? And they were perfect in the red zone. 4 of 4 in the red zone. Their only non-red zone score was that Ollie Gordon touchdown run early in the game. They run for 269 yards. They convert 11 of 15 third and fourth down. And yet BYU wins. That's what's so miraculous about the win.
17 plays, 76 yards, 8:22 of game action. Oklahoma State's touchdown drive to go up 35-31 on BYU. Ollie Gordon looked like Ollie Gordon of the past. He was brilliant last night against BYU. He had 16 carries, 107 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. He also had a receiving touchdown where he hurdled Falatau Satuala. Ollie Gordon was brilliant, but Isaiah Glasker, man, laying some hits on Gordon. Back-to-back plays. Gordon takes carry, hit by Glasker. Gordon goes out. He comes back after being on the bike. He tells ESPN's Paul Carcaterra, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm going back in. One play in, Glasker hits him again, and Gordon goes down. Crazy stuff. That was a physical football game, but Gordon, heck of a football player, and it was good to see Gordon have success. And honestly, it was good to see BYU's defense tested. And you got to be, because
they failed the test.
They did. And Jay Hill, you still get this win. So much to learn. And I'm fascinated to see. It wasn't kind of the right moment to talk about it after the game. But coming up, starting on Monday, how do they approach a very short week getting ready for UCF? Because everything's consolidated. It's not a Friday game, but it's a 2 time zone game where you're expected to leave on Thursday. So the timeline kind of shrinks. Today's a little bit of a recovery day for BYU players, and Sunday, of course, they have off. So you better hit the ground running to get back on track. And, look, I believe the defense will, but to give up 269 to an Oklahoma State team on the ground that the run is coming. They had no threats through the air. Rangel, Bowman, not good passers. Bowman started 0 of 5 with a pick. He got into a groove for there a little bit, and credit to him. He's battled through a lot, but BYU's defense has got to get better from this and not let this become, a trend in the back half of the season.
We've opened the phone lines, 801-575-8255. This is normally reserved for Monday night's Cougar Nation, but considering the moment, considering the wave of momentum and the excitement, we're opening it up here on Cougar Sports Saturday, and we have a special caller, Troy Dunn from the BYU Cruise. Troy, what is going on, brother?
Mitch and Matt, I am still trembling from sitting in that stadium last night and watching the miracle of all miracles for a finish. I can't even breathe. I just ran an errand to Smith's Grocery for my wife, wearing all my BYU garb. I can't walk 5 feet down the aisle. People are talking. People are buzzing. There's something happening. It's way bigger than 7-0. It's really just blowing my mind. I'm very superstitious, so I always want to be careful what I say. I was very lucky and blessed to be a football recruit for BYU in 1984. I did not end up getting the call to get the scholarship. I had an injury. I ended up at Pittsburgh State. But spending that whole season thinking I was going to be a Cougar, making trips up here, spending time in a meeting with Lavelle Edwards, walking around with team, having seniors drive me on recruiting visits around the city to go do fun stuff. That energy is here this year, and I don't want to jinx it. I'm just telling you, there's something in the air. It wasn't a coincidence that the 1984 veterans were sitting on that field last night. There's something going on, Mitch and Matt. There's something happening, and again, I don't want to voodoo it, but we have started something here, and there's some sort of momentum here that I don't even know if all of us can appreciate. Perhaps Kalani and the guys can. I've lived for 28 years in Florida. I've only recently moved to Utah. That UCF team we're about to come across, you're going to see a different experience. Because our guys, even in the moment of battle when things look dire, remain connected. Those UCF guys begin to pick at themselves. And this will be the only prediction I make today, Mitch. You will see a self-destruction happen at UCF if we are able to execute next Saturday the way we ended this game this week. And that's ultimately part of what's happening, I think, this year with the BYU Cougars. There's an invisible weave between these guys and Kalani and the momentum behind them. And watching that fan base last night, the reaction and the emotions. I was standing around grown men with tears in their eyes while they danced like little girls, jumping up and down in that last 60 seconds. And I didn't call to make a plug for the BYU Cruise. It's filling up fast and it doesn't need it. But we have the most struggle taking these calls from people who are booking cabins because they really just want to sit on the phone with us as they're booking and testify to the feelings they have about BYU and what's happening this year and the magic. And so without saying anything that would be jinxing, I just want to say that what we all felt and experienced last night is going to continue to roll forward because there's something happening that is bigger than us. This is a very big year for Brigham Young University football.
Thanks for the call, Troy. Great stuff. It does feel like something magical is going on.
Troy Dunn, BYU Cruise holding it down. Yeah, that's big-time stuff. Imagine going on that cruise if BYU has an undefeated season. Seeing Kalani go down the slide. He wanted more slides. He wanted more family action. So good times right now for BYU football.
Let's get out to the phone line.
Let's get back out to the line.
We promised Robbie Bullo, and he's with us now. He used to do Cougar Sports Saturday back in the day, and now he's doing some sideline work for Gridiron Radio Network. You were on the field for that final drive, Robbie. Describe what the energy and the vibes were like at Lavelle Edwards Stadium on that game-winning touchdown drive.
That was pretty incredible, guys. I don't know who was more winded, me or Darius Lassiter, when we did our post-game interview, because I was preparing to do Oklahoma State interviews post-game. So we were going to talk to Mike Gundy, Ollie Gordon, Presley. And so I was on kind of their end. And as BYU's moving, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have to get over there quickly. And so I don't know what my 40 time is, but it was probably faster last night than it's ever been as I booked it over to the other side and to get Darius Lassiter and Jake Retzoff post-game. But it was just the swing of emotions there. You know, we're prepping for a potential Oklahoma State win, and then BYU just pulling out their magic that they seem to do in Provo all the time.
You've experienced some amazing wins for BYU this season, Kansas State, and now this one with the Gridiron Radio Network. How loud was it last night inside the stadium after that catch from Darius?
Yeah, in fact, Noah and John, the Gridiron broadcasters, were asking me that, and I said the best way I can say it is usually, because down there on the sideline, I've got like a double earmuffed headset. I usually have one on so I can hear them and one off so I can like have the ambiance. I was double earmuffing it because I could barely hear the broadcasters. That's how loud it was down there on the field. I've heard Lavelle get pretty loud at times, but it was just something special last night. I think each win, just the fan base, it's starting to build, and they're feeling some excitement of something special, and it just unleashed with Darius's touchdown, and that was there was just magic. I told Jake in our post-game interview, I said, you did like 2/3 of that work, yardage-wise, getting it to him. And then those last couple of moves that he made to get into the end zone, doing it right in front of the rock was just, special.
Robbie, last thing for you. Jake, I think there was a mixed feeling about Jake when the season began. And now that he's led a 6-0 team and had that miraculous game-winning touchdown drive, what did you sense from Jake in that post-game interview, and what did he say? And do you feel like he has settled into being the starting quarterback at BYU?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it post-game, he and I, where, I told him that this game felt very similar to the one in Stillwater last year, except it was Oklahoma State that had kind of the late heroics to take a lead and then ultimately pull it out in double overtime. And, Jake here, he's the same quarterback that was in that game, but now he's the one pulling out the win against Oklahoma State. So I think it just showed the growth that Jake has, as well as what the team has had all year. And last night, I think it was the kind of win that a team that's destined for something special has to have. Now, still a lot of football left to play. Who knows what's going to happen? But any team that, goes undefeated, competes for a conference championship, there's always kind of that one game you point to where they snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat. And last night felt like that game for BYU. So we'll see. If this ends up being a special year for BYU, I think later on in the season we'll point back to this game and say that was the one. That was the game where they had to be resilient and they had to show what they could do, and they were able to do that.
He's Robbie Bolo, sideline reporter on the Gridiron Radio Network, friend of the program here on Cougar Sports Saturday. Great work, Robbie. And, hopefully we see you on more BYU games, because every time you're on the sidelines, these games are just magical for BYU.
Hey, Gridiron's 3-0 in Provo, so I've told the guys they got to keep coming back.
Thanks, Robbie. Appreciate it. Great stuff, and we'll talk again down the road.
All right.
Before we get to break, Beehive Meals, a Utah-based meal prep service, they have changed the game for my family, Mitch. I've got 2 kids under 4 years old. My oldest son actually turns 4 in a couple of days, but as you can imagine, with 2 crazy children that I don't know if it's probably in my blood, but for whatever reason, I'm a super busy, active guy. I have a hard time sitting down. I always want to be doing something. I pass it on to my kids. That makes dinner time incredibly tough. And my wife was like, I need a break. Help me. We need to find a way to make dinner time easier. Enter Beehive Meals. The slow cooker meal has been so convenient, so easy, adding time back into our lives, and yet it still tastes good.
Yeah, it simplifies your evening routine so you can spend more time enjoying your meal and less time stressing over it. And that's what's great about Beehive Meals. Many of the customers, share stories how Beehive Meals has, kind of transformed their hectic evenings, like you've said, into a more relaxed and enjoyable family time. And we've, experienced the same with our experience with Beehive Meals. And the menu's great, too, with Beehive Meals. They got the barbecue chicken, the carne asada, the cheeseburger mac. Beehive Meals, it's a local company, too, that's just been growing. They've delivered over 2.5 million meals over the Intermountain West, serving customers in Utah, Idaho, Colorado, Arizona, and Nevada. Check them out on beehivemeals.com.
Let's take a break. Conference check-in. Big 12 coming up next. We'll look around the world of the Big 12.
Welcome back in. Cougar Sports Saturday. The vibes are high right now. Cougs are 7-0. BYU 38, Oklahoma State 35. What time did you go to bed last night, Matt?
I got to bed at 1:47 p.m. I wear my Apple Watch to bed because I like to track the stats, and I had 4 hours and 34 minutes of sleep.
Wow. You went to bed at 1:47?
Well, I live close to the stadium.
Yeah,
I don't live
true.
in Murray like you do.
I left the stadium around 3:20 a.m. and
were you the last one in there?
It was me and it was just me. Yeah, I was the last one in the stadium. There was someone from the Oklahoman. There was someone from the Trib. Kevin Reynolds with the Trib. And we were the last 3. And then I was just like, okay, I'm kind of in LaVell Edwards Stadium after a memorable night. I'm just going to kind of walk around and kind of see this and kind of feel the aura around the stadium. And it was pretty cool. And got home. You just kind of, I don't know about you. Do you just get like a crazy appetite afterwards?
No.
After a game, you don't?
No.
You don't get a crazy appetite. Maybe that's just me. Then you had to eat, and I'm like...
So you got home at 4.
I get home at 4, and I'm like, you know what? I kind of want to watch like some of the highlights, just the key plays. So I'm kind of zooming through. Next thing I know, it's like 4:45, and time to go to bed, and we're back at it. Let's get after it. Then I had to get up for game day to see if they brought up BYU on the Saturday, and they did. And Nick Saban slamming the idea of one-loss BYU potentially in the playoff, which, come on, give me a break. The Big 12 deserves more respect than that. This is an entertaining, great league.
If there's a 2-loss team, like let's say BYU loses one before the Big 12 championship game and then loses another, okay, they probably aren't going to get in. But if you have 2 undefeated teams playing for the Big 12 championship game, both those teams should get in. And BYU, if BYU is the team with the 1 loss, Mitch, they'll have a non-conference win against SMU that could very well play in the ACC championship game. And then you have all these nice Big 12 wins against good teams. I don't know. I don't agree with that at all, Nick.
Let's get to the conference check-in. It's sponsored by Central Bank. Week 8 action in the Big 12 Conference. BYU, of course, gets on the board first. They take down Oklahoma State 38-35 in what will be a memorable game in Provo. Cincinnati beating Arizona State 24-14 in Cincy. The Bearcats were a favorite in that game after Sam Leavitt went down, but welcome to the Big 12, Arizona State, where 1 week you're riding high, beating Utah, and then you go 2 time zones to Ohio. It's a national league, and Cincinnati is a tough out.
Arizona State is a much improved team, Mitch, but I never bought them threatening to win the league. They're not the worst team in the league, but they're not going to be playing in Arlington. Coming up later during our show, which ends at 3 p.m. Don't you dare turn that dial, or don't you dare turn off the stream. We're on YouTube Live right now, baby. So if you want to watch us get animated, come join us on the party at YouTube. Houston and Kansas is the next game to kick. Don't really care about that one. Colorado at Arizona. I'd like to see Arizona maybe bounce back and get a win here. One that is kind of interesting, Baylor and Texas Tech. Texas Tech is undefeated in league play. Baylor's quarterback, though, Sawyer Robertson, statistically, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12 right now. Could they spring an upset? And then later on tonight, a big one with BYU implications, 5:30 on FS1 UCF, going to Ames to take on number 9 Iowa State.
I'm very intrigued to see that game. Ja'Kurrie Brown, third-string quarterback a week ago. He's now the starter. They benched KJ Jefferson for UCF. Curious to see how the Knights fare against the team that's the highest ranked in the Big 12 Conference, Iowa State. The Cyclones have a nasty defense, a lot of youth on their roster. It's a good football team. I would love to see BYU, Iowa State in the Big 12 title game. That stadium, AT&T, would be close to a sellout, I think, if those two fan bases got to Texas in early December. And then Kansas State at West Virginia. That's my upset special this week. I got the Mountaineers in that one. And then late night, Utah host TCU. We'll see if the Horned Frogs keep Utah's losing streak going or if Utah bounces back in the new era under Isaac Wilson.
TCU is certainly capable. I know they're only 3-3 and 1-2, but you look at Josh Hoover's numbers, over 2,000 passing yards, 16 touchdowns already. We know what he can do against a BYU defense. He shredded them last year. And I'm really curious to see how Utah handles the adversity of another dramatic quarterback situation. Cam Rising out for the season. Enter Isaac Wilson. How does he handle a new role? Because previously he was just there to keep the ship afloat until Cam came back. That's no longer the case. That'll be an interesting one tonight up on the hill.
Taking the time out. On the other side, we'll talk to Jackson Payne from the Deseret News, get his thoughts on the atmosphere last night in that big win for the Cougs.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for 3. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome on in, hour number 2, Cougar Sports Saturday. How you feeling, Cougar Nation? Man, it's good times right now. BYU 7-0. And I got to say, Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte here with you on KSL News Radio. I got to say, when you watch college football around the country and you see all the action right now, we're watching Miami, Louisville on the screen right now. Miami's number 6 in the country, and I'm watching this game in and out while we host the show. But I don't come away feeling like, well, BYU couldn't hang with Miami. Like I know
there's only 3 teams really that I don't feel like they could hang with.
Look, the thing is too is BYU went up against Texas, the number 1 team in the country last year. No, it's different teams, and it wasn't Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning in that Texas game, but for stretches defensively, BYU held their own.
Yep.
I think BYU has got this confidence, and look, I'd love to see the opportunity like TCU got, where you go to the national title. Hey, maybe get your doors blown off, and maybe you get ripped to shreds by a Georgia or a Texas. Maybe it happens. But you know what? I just think BYU in a playoff, they could be a tough out, Matt. And I think it's going to be fun to see how this season progresses. And the fact that we're talking about maybe playoff aspirations is pretty fun for this BYU football team. I know a guy last night that had a really good time. He was in the press box with us. Deseret News writer Jackson Payne knows a lot about BYU sports and all-around good guy. Jackson, welcome on into Cougar Sports Saturday. How you feeling on this Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon now?
Guys, it's great to be here, but I got to admit, I feel a little bit bad I just feel like I can't do justice for what we saw last night. That was just incredible. Nothing I say can compare to what we saw, but what a game. We're going to be telling our kids about that one for years to come. So much fun.
Did that eclipse the Kansas State win for you?
1,000%. Yeah. I mean, Kansas State was impressive just considering where they were ranked and BYU being the underdog, but this was a more exciting game. BYU blew the doors off Kansas State, which was super encouraging, but there's something about overcoming adversity and the magic that occurred last night that's going to stick with you way longer. And I was already thinking, would I rather pick Parker Kingston's punt return or Retzlaff to Lassiter as the number 1 play of the season? And I got to go Retzlaff to Lassiter because it carries so much more weight. Obviously, the Kingston punt return was incredible and probable and went viral. I mean, we'll think about that one for years, but it didn't win the game. That game was already won pretty much. And so for Retzlaff to find Lassiter in that moment and Lassiter to just be invincible and break all those tackles. And I mean, there's just magic happens, right? Austin Collie said it best. And the magic of BYU sports is what stays with you forever. And that's got to take the top spot for me.
Do you feel like it's just I asked Kalani in the post game that is this a team of destiny? And I'm curious your thoughts. Do you feel like this is a team of destiny right now with the pace that they're at 7-0?
You know what? It's hard not to think they're a team of destiny. And I think the Big 12 is such a chaotic conference. There's so many random upsets and there's a lot of cannibalism within the conference. And I think that's healthy for college football as a whole. It's fun to get these upsets and to have such a compelling conference slate, but BYU's played in 2 games now against Baylor in the second half where they almost collapsed, and this game against Oklahoma State where it went right down to the wire. Those are very much Big 12 chaos games that probably could have gone the other way, and BYU lost, and BYU found a way to win both games, right? And so great teams find a way to win games down the stretch. They make plays. Obviously, you had the Crew Wakely pick against Baylor. You had Retzlaff to Lassiter last night. I mean, BYU's coming out victorious in these kind of coin flip Big 12 chaos games. And for me, that screams destiny, right? And so now you got to really, the next 3 weeks are crazy for BYU. You got to travel 2 time zones away to the East Coast, go to UCF. That's a really athletic team with a lot of speed. Jay Hill's defense is going to have its hands full. And then you got to play Utah in 2 weeks, right? So we're going to see if the destiny tag can keep up for BYU in these next 2 games. But right now, if you don't think BYU is a team of destiny, then something's wrong because they have the resume for it and they have the film for it, and it's just been. I grew up on the East Coast, right? BYU wasn't really relevant out there. I get people from high school texting me all the time now, like, "Oh my gosh, BYU's crazy! Like, I can't believe you were at that game. Like, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen." Like, people are paying attention. It feels very TCU 2022-esque, and so, that was the definition of team of destiny, and I think BYU's a nice spiritual successor this year.
Taking the Darius Lassiter touchdown off the table, because it's a game-winning touchdown. That's obviously the play of the game. But in that second half, I felt like there was 4 or 5 significant plays that had a large determination on the outcome. Is there a play in that second half that stands out to you as just being a huge play that maybe will get overlooked because of the Lassiter touchdown?
Yeah, I think Chase Roberts on that same drive, the 4th and 8, where Retzlaff converted to Roberts over the middle. That was such an impressive throw by Retzlaff. He's kind of backpedaling through sidearm, kind of the Mahomes-esque arm slot motion that he's been so famous for at BYU now. Roberts has been so solid this year. I feel like he's kind of flown under the radar. He hasn't had any like crazy jump off the page plays like he did in 2022 or 2023, but I've been really impressed by Chase Roberts. I thought that play was awesome. I thought Tommy Prasis's interception was really great, and that led to a score. And so, I mean, there was just – and to take Rangel out of the game, Tanner Wall tackling him, chasing him down, that was the first half, obviously, but still, that was such a big game. That was such a big swing for BYU. Obviously, Bowman played much better than we thought, but I think to have to force Oklahoma State to scramble in terms of changing their game plan with Bowman, and that was huge down the stretch. And Rangel had a really nice feel of the game. And there were a lot of plays down the stretch, but that Roberts play and the Prassis pick, I think, are the two that stand out the most for me.
Are you concerned at all about the defense moving forward after this game where they give up 269 on the ground?
No, I mean, I don't think the defense is as bad as what they saw last night, and I don't think it was as good as we thought going in, right? I think there's a medium, and that's not to say that there's not a good defense. They were 15th in the country in scoring average going into last night, and last night they played like a bottom 20 defense in the league, right? And so, or in the country. I think the fact that they won makes it so much easier to adjust and to have the hard conversations and be uncomfortable in the film room. Had they lost, I feel like there's that really bitter taste in your mouth. It's just awkward. But now I feel like they won, and it's much more easy to be humbled in the film room and to make those adjustments. And like I said, UCF is a really tough opponent. They have a lot of good team speed. They have a lot of athleticism. We'll see what they do at the quarterback position. But, I mean, Jay Hill has been phenomenal this year. Last night was kind of his first miss of the season, I felt like. And I find it hard to believe that Jay Hill is going to have 2 misses in a row. I don't think that he's lost his fastball. I think last night, I don't want to no disrespect to BYU's coaching staff, but I thought that Gundy and his staff might have outcoached BYU at times, and BYU was definitely fortunate to get that win, but it felt like Gundy's staff maybe had it more together than BYU, and I don't think that happens 2 weeks in a row. So I'm a big believer in Jay Hill. I've been really encouraged by the defense this year. I think last night was more of the exception rather than the rule. So maybe they're not a top 15 scoring defense, but maybe they're top 20, maybe they're top 30, and that's still really solid and incredible improvement from last year. And so UCF is going to be a great test for this team. And then, you got Utah in 2 weeks. You got an extra bye week to prepare for Utah. You're playing Isaac Wilson, a true freshman. I got to think Jay Hill's licking his chops to game plan for that game, because what an awesome environment that's going to be, and what a great chance for his defense to maybe silence some of the critics from last night.
What do you think of Jake Retzlaff? The reason I ask this is it looks like he got dinged up at the end of the first half. I got a text saying, "Can't wait for Gary." Like, that still exists out there, even though Jake has led a 7-0 start and they're a top 15 team. What do you make of Jake?
Jake is balling, I mean, the throws he made down the stretch last night, the throw to Retzlaff, the throw to Roberts, he made some bad decisions, obviously, but I think BYU is so lucky that he didn't get hurt at the end of the first half. I mean, it looked like he was going to break his arm. I fully expected Gary to come out. I thought Jake was done right there, but I was kind of having Toledo flashbacks from 2019 when Zach Wilson made the tackle on the interception when the game was already lost and he was out for a few weeks. I was like, oh, great, here we go again. But, I mean, Jake's balling. How many other quarterbacks have started 7-0 at BYU, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, and it's definitely not broke. He's been playing great. I love what A-Rod has done this season. I know people love to throw him under the bus, but I thought he's called an incredible campaign to be 7-0. And one of the things I really loved was not only Jake's insistence to stay in the game, but I don't know if humility is the right word, but the willingness to adjust the game plan and go along with what the coaches were calling out at halftime. I know Jake's a gunslinger. He loves to throw the football around, but they ran like 10 straight run plays coming out at halftime. And a lot of quarterbacks want to show that they're okay. Like, hey, I'm not hurt. I can throw the football. And for him to go along with all those run plays and really kind of get back in the game scoring-wise by just gashing Oklahoma State on the ground, I thought that was an awesome, awesome effort. And it showed a lot about Jake to be willing to execute a game plan like that may not suit his interests necessarily, but he had a chance to win the game at the end. He did it. I've been hearing for years about how great Jake is in the 2-minute drill. And so when he got the ball back with 73 seconds left, I was like, okay, he's never really had to do this before. I've been hearing about how great he is in crunch time, and I just kind of had this feeling like something magic's going to happen here. I don't know. I don't want to sound like LeBron just lying, right? But it really felt like something was going to go BYU's way, and sure enough, I mean, like I said, we're going to be telling our kids about that game for years to come. Retzlaff has been great. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the Big 12 this year by far. I mean, what a blast he is to watch. And, you know, Gary Bohannon, I'm sure he would have had success this year too, but what Jake is doing is special. Really big fan of Retzlaff.
Last thing for Jackson Payne from the Deseret News on with us here on Cougar Sports Saturday on KSL News Radio. You were in the post-game press conference with Mike Gundy. Our intern, Allie Braithwaite, was there too. What was kind of the mood of being in person with Gundy after his Pokes lost to BYU and kind of his tone and reaction to falling to BYU and the atmosphere in Provo?
Yeah, I was surprised how quickly he came in for postgame. I know some coaches, after a loss like that, they take their time. They're not really eager to face the media, but he came right in. He wasn't afraid to take tough questions. I asked him about the atmosphere in Provo and what he thought about it, having never coached here before, and he was super complimentary. I'm a big Mike Gundy fan. I think he's a professional. Obviously, he's had kind of a chaotic career in terms of just his just being a character himself, right? But he's a really successful coach. He's done a lot of great things at Oklahoma State. And like I said, I thought he outcoached BYU last night. I know him and Kalani are great friends. I don't think Kalani coached a bad game. I just think Gundy coached a better game. And I think because of that, there was kind of he had the confidence to go in front and face the music. And I thought he was very complimentary to BYU. He was respectful, and I don't think there's any bad blood between these two teams. I think it's just sometimes you lose and you just got to – I think there was a TikTok I saw of somebody, one of the Oklahoma State players on the sideline after Retzlaff's touchdown. He just kind of had this, like, goofy smile on his face, like, oh, my gosh, I can't believe that happened. And it stinks to lose, but I think sometimes you just got to tip your hat and go, you know what, that's a magical moment, and you can't really prevent something like that. Obviously, you could have made a better tackle. You could have made 3 better tackles on Retzlaff, on Lassiter. But I think Gundy, they're 0-4. He didn't really seem devastated or anything. It was more of just, man, we lost, on to the next. And so I respected him a lot for that.
That's Jackson Payne. Good stuff, Jackson. He's with the Deseret News, and also good luck to your Commanders. Jackson's a big Commanders fan, so good luck to them going forward. They might win that division, Jackson.
Goodness, that would be a dream come true. For BYU to be 7-0 and the Commanders to have a franchise quarterback and be one of the best offenses in the country, this is probably the best year of football I've ever had, knock on wood. What a time to be alive, gentlemen.
What a time to be alive. Thanks, Jackson. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jackson.
I appreciate you guys.
Before we get to break, earlier today, I was going to Lehigh Bakery, Mitch, to get some donuts, celebrate that big win, needed a little extra juice of sugar. And my wife, we're getting ready for my son's 4th birthday. She mentioned she went to the dollar store, and I'm like, man, I haven't been to the dollar store in years. And she said, well, not everything's $1 anymore. Now it's all $1.25. And that just kind of illustrates the economic times that we're living in. Thankfully, there's someone like Beehive Meals out there who not only make things easy for you, saves you time, but they can save you money. Because in today's economy, Mitch, the rising cost of food is a concern for everyone. Serving cost with Beehive Meals, $3 to $4 a person. It's competitive. It's budget friendly. That's really nice to have during these times.
And it's unmatched convenience too. Along with being economical, it's convenient. The planning, the shopping, the prepping for family dinners, it can be time consuming and exhausting. We've all been there. We've experienced that in our families. Beehive Meals takes care of all that for you. Just place your order online. They'll get it delivered and set a set of 10 meals directly to your doorstep. So it's hassle-free solution that gives you more time to focus on what really matters in your busy schedule. We're all busy. We're all juggling multiple things. Whatever your kind of economic situation is, they're going to have an option for you and your family, and that's what makes Beehive Meals so convenient.
Check them out, beehivemeals.com. Take a break. We'll get back to some calls, texts, breaking down that big win over Oklahoma State next.
Welcome back in to Cougar Sports Saturday. These are great times. Cougs 38, Pokes 35. Last night in LaVell Edwards Stadium was an all-timer. Putting you on the spot, Matt.
Oh, okay.
Where's that one rank for you?
All-time? Or
let's go. How about since we started doing the show together, you and I, in 2019?
Wow, you are putting me on the spot. That to me is...
Doesn't it feel like it needs to be near the top? You hate to say that in knee-jerk because you want to size up the whole body of work, but
I think
pretty memorable.
Off the top of my head, I'd say it is top 3. I think 2 of the top 3 have happened this year.
Yeah.
And then I think the other one would be the Utah win, just because of everything that it represented, ending the streak, kind of taking the monkey off your back, to quote Steve Young when he won a Super Bowl. Take the monkey off my back. Like, you can't discount that. That wasn't a really important win. But then Kansas State, I don't want to see them again, man. I hope you're right later today that West Virginia beats them, because I'm afraid, I am terribly afraid of a Big 12 rematch with Kansas State. I do not want to see that in Arlington, because I would pick Kansas State to win that one convincingly. Repeat performances are hard. Look at last night. That felt very much like a repeat performance. 2 times against a very similar team in a calendar year, and you almost didn't win that game. So, yeah, but I didn't like the whole performance, obviously. Too many mistakes. Defensively, it was a pretty porous defensive effort. But then you factor in that game-winning touchdown drive and how infrequent that happens, because I can name 7, 8 games in the Kalani era, maybe since we've been doing it. Jackson brought up one, Toledo. Like, I didn't think they were going to win that game, and they didn't win the game, even though they had a chance at the end to win that game. So the fact that they did do that with 1 minute and 13 left on the clock, it's got to be top 3.
Yeah, USF a couple weeks later in that season, they had a late, drive with
stalled in the red zone,
his first start, and then Baylor Romney comes into that game and they couldn't get it done. Coastal Carolina in 2020. It was last night was interesting because once Oklahoma State countered BYU, we forget it now, but that first play of the game, 50-yard bomb, Retzlaff to Lasser. I'm thinking, holy cow. The good times are just rolling for BYU. They're living the high life. And credit Oklahoma State, man. They countered with a 50-yard run by Ollie Gordon. You're thinking, that hasn't been on display the last 5 weeks from Oklahoma State.
Right.
But, when Oklahoma State got up 21-14 in the second quarter, I'm thinking, this doesn't feel like BYU's night. And they kept digging out of the hole. And I love, we haven't talked about this enough, and we'll get to it more, but L.J. Martin was awesome.
Yeah.
I love seeing L.J. Martin break free, man. And, I thought Hinckley had a nice game, too. I thought the running backs, L.J. Martin and Ropati, nice 1-2 tandem. And I kind of come away from this game, Matt, feeling like what's exciting about those two guys is they don't have much wear and tear on them. I know they've navigated injuries, but as far as hits, mileage in games, they're kind of ready for the back half of the season. And you saw 2 players that looked fresh, ready to go, and I thought there was good burst. L.J. Martin was good. On a night where Ollie Gordon, his star, shined bright, L.J. Martin's was just as bright, and he said, he's one of the best big running backs in the Big 12 potentially too. 20 carries, 120 yards, a career high for L.J., 2 touchdowns. Hinckley, 6 carries, 47. I loved what I saw from the running backs. And then Retzlaff goes off for 81 with that 27-yarder. It was a good night for the backs and just a good night all around. I'd put it probably I'd probably put in the top 3. When I was talking about it on my post-game drive on Cougar Tracks last night driving home, I want to kind of size up the whole scope of it. But those type of moments, we might not see a moment like that in Provo maybe the next 10, 15 years. Like, those type of wins don't happen often.
And you've had a couple of them already this year. Like, my mom texted me last night, I can't believe I didn't get season tickets. Like, for all of those people who got them, like, you're just having the time of your life.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is a memorable season.
K-State, Arizona, last night, Oklahoma State, even week 1 against Southern Illinois, where the offense just takes off. It's a blowout win. Great times for BYU.
Let's get to a break. News, traffic, and weather coming your way. More Cougar Sports Saturday is coming up next, and it's brought to you by Any Hour, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete and another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for 3. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday. Gosh, it's been a fun show. I was looking forward to the show even before because Cougar Nation is a lot of fun. It's injected some life into our weekly process because for years, this is kind of dating us a little bit, but in 2019, our first year here, that was a wild first month. And we never had a show because BYU was playing USC in the middle of the day, and we never got to, react. So Cougar Nation's been a lot of fun in that regard to have a post-game show. But this is 3 hours of post-game. And then for it to be on the heels of a memorable come-from-behind win, this has been a lot of fun.
This is just the BYU football gods, Lavelle looking down on us and saying, we got to give these guys an epic show. And on a night, last night, 1984 team was there. More than 50 players from that team were in attendance. Seeing it, Cougar Canyon, Kelly Smith, going up to Leon White. I mean, just studs, legends, BYU football greats. And those guys got to witness that. I mean, what's so cool to me about BYU, and this before we'll get to the top five here shortly, I think it's so cool, and it's been great to see BYU alums coming back from all different generations, whether you were Fred Warner, Steve Young, Puka Nacua, Leon White, coming back and being part of BYU football after all these years. Look, I don't feel like every school has that, where they have the alums, the former players, the greats. They're invested. They're committed. Some of them probably even financially committed to the success of the current program. I just think that's pretty special. And BYU football really is a big family that – because really, I mean, you think about the history of BYU football, and I'm excited to come up at 2 o'clock. We're going to have Val Hell, author of Out of the Blue, ex-BYU AD, joining us at 2 o'clock to talk about his book and also that amazing win. But just there's something special about that, the magic of BYU football. It's a tangible thing. And just games like that, BYU's always been known to produce incredible finishes. And I just think that last night was a really cool moment that will just always be remembered. And I remember growing up seeing greatest moments in BYU football history, that VHS tape, dedication, honesty, loyalty, commitment. And it's just, you watch that, you saw the 1990 BYU Miami. This game isn't on the same tier as BYU Miami. Don't get it twisted. I mean, that was an all-timer. The mystique behind that game is incredible, but to have these legends and to have that moment, there's a lot of parallels between 84 and 2024. Two underdog teams, not expected to do anything, and they're doing the unthinkable. It's pretty cool stuff, and BYU football is a great platform, and we're lucky to be here at KSL to talk about it because we're talking to a passionate fan base that lives and dies through the good times and the bad, and we get to share it here on this show. It's pretty awesome.
Let's pivot now to a segment that we just love, and we love to compete. Just like this BYU football team, I'm ready to compete right now.
The Cougar Sports Saturday Top 5. Top 5. Mitch and Matt clash in a weekly battle of BYU sports knowledge. Here's the Top 5.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate you for giving us that imaging, Tim Hughes. Let's bring in producer Nate Slack, moderator of the Top 5. If you're new to the show, first time listening, every week we do kind of a game show style segment where Nate Slack gives us a list, whether it's opinion or fact-based. We have to guess his BYU-centric top 5 list. So, Nate, what's the topic this week?
So, over the summer, I saw a list, and it was funny because every single NCAA tournament, we see the list of, BYU has the most NCAA tournament appearances without a Final Four appearance.
Yep.
And this one was for football, so the most all-time wins without a national championship. And so these numbers are not up to date for this season. This was made over the offseason, but today's top 5 is going to be the most all-time wins without a national championship. So I figured it means something this year because of 40-year anniversary of the 1984 team. They were honored last night. So we'll take a look at the teams with the most wins in their history without a national championship.
All right. Fair
Who
enough.
starts?
So it's a tough one, but Mitch is going to be starting today.
Let's go with Wisconsin.
Yeah, I've got Wisconsin number 1 on my list. 738 wins coming into this season, but it's kind of crazy to think they've never won a national championship.
Yeah, a lot of history in that Wisconsin program, but they've never kind of broke through. That's why the 12-team playoffs is pretty exciting for programs like that.
Yeah. Matt?
Texas A&M.
Not in the top 5.
I think they won in the 30s, too.
Yeah.
I know you want to go to a black and white, but hey, they count.
Fair.
Let's
Fair.
go with. Let's go with. Let's go with North Carolina.
Oh,
Coming
my.
out swinging. Number 5 on the list, North Carolina,
Jeez.
685 wins.
These sort of college football national lists, Matt, what do you think I do in the summertime? I'm pouring over Sports Reference. I'm looking at these wins. Yeah, North Carolina, never gotten it done.
Wow.
This is a chance for a sweep. You get it the steal.
Okay, let's go with. How about Michigan State?
No Michigan State. These are all P5 teams, though. I guess P4 teams now, so just a heads up.
How about in an unfortunate viral clip, the Oregon Duck, his head came off last night at Purdue, the Ducks.
Oh.
Oregon's not in the top
Granted,
5.
I mean, they didn't really turn it up until
like the 90s, 80s.
Fair. Yeah,
because you think about 1990 when they played BYU. BYU was a massive favorite, number 4 in the country. Oregon was just kind of an afterthought, when Detmer and crew rolled into Autzen, and then they kind of turned it up with Bellotti, who I still think he wouldn't. What was that? There was a fight at Fremont Street. Maybe we got to hit up Ben Criddle to relive that 2006 Vegas Fremont Street brawl, the dance-off. Anyway, Bellotti discredited BYU back then. Anyway, let's go with, and again, just give us a reset. What's the list again, and to refresh our listeners?
Yeah, the top 5 is the most all-time wins without a national championship, so those 5 teams. And Wisconsin and North Carolina are off the list.
This doesn't seem right, but UCLA?
No UCLA.
Yeah. They got one deep in like the 30s or something, 40s.
I'm only going back like 40 years. So let's try Ole Miss.
They got a title in the 60s.
Yeah, no SEC teams left in this list.
How about, let's go with Stanford. Give us a hint.
We have one team from the ACC and 2 teams from the Big 12.
Let's go. Let me try and dial down that ACC team. The Hokies, Vatek. Okay, thank you. Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech, number 2 on this list, 737 wins coming into this season.
They're number
surprise.
2, really. So the Frank Beamer era, a lot of wins, but not the big one. They played in a natty with Vic, right?
Yeah,
but Florida State got them
against Florida State, Sugar Bowl, 25th anniversary of that team this year for Virginia Tech.
Michael Vick's that old?
Yeah, how crazy is that?
Dang.
Someone compared Jake Retzlaff last night on social media to Michael Vick.
I don't think so.
Someone did, and I kind of was like, I don't agree with it at all, but I love it. Like, I'm here for it. Let's go with Oklahoma State. No, they actually won one in 1945. I was reading their game notes. Dang it. Okay.
How about, gosh, dang, this is really tricky. Let's try Texas Tech.
That's probably it. Oh, wow.
It is not.
Okay.
Ugh. That hurts.
Thinking of the Big 12 here. How about Arizona State? Give us another hint.
One team is on our schedule this year, and one team is not on the schedule this year.
Okay.
One team is on the schedule that's never won a national championship.
Correct.
How about those?
The game is still to be played.
I know.
I'll narrow it down.
I'm trying. I was gonna be disrespectful, and then I thought better of it because I'm on KSL News Radio, and I wanted to have a little class. So how about that team right up the street, the Utes?
Wow.
Number 4, 688 wins heading into this season. No national championships for Utah.
Interesting. I didn't realize they were that high.
Same.
So we're tied 2-2. Mitch, chance for a win. One more Big 12 team.
Let's go with. I'm just running through the teams in my head here.
And they have more wins than Utah all time. And North Carolina. So they're number 3 on the list.
West Virginia.
Oh, that was going to be my next guess. I was going to sing the song, West Virginia. Oh, good pull.
Yes. Gosh, who was that quarterback they had? Major. I can't remember. They were an independent team, and they were really good back in the day. No, that's good stuff. Good list. Interesting list of teams there for college football teams. Most wins without a national title. Good thing for BYU, they're not on that list. They got a natty.
Good point.
And look, do you think it's possible they could reach the national title? Players are talking about it now, so I think it's fair game to talk. Players are saying publicly they are chasing the national championship.
Here's the thing. If they win the league, they'll be the 4 seed. And that means you will play one of the best teams in college football.
Not a guarantee you'd be the 4 seed, though. Keep that in mind.
Fair, but
because Boise, the narrative around them and that Oregon loss might be better than anything that BYU wins.
There's no way that Boise State would be ranked higher than BYU at the end of the year if they are undefeated. Not a chance.
With Genty, though?
Not a chance. Guys, come on.
This sport,
come on now.
This sport, this year, the narrative on this sport.
They have nobody left to play.
Look, I agree with you. BYU is way better. But look, Boise State narrative. College football can't
BYU narrative.
College football cannot handle themselves when it comes to narrative with Heisman contender. They had a close loss to Oregon. Last week when Oregon beat Ohio State, I'm seeing on social media, you know who's the biggest winner tonight? Boise State. Why? Because they had a close loss to Oregon. What world do we live in where one loss is better than being an undefeated team? But look, I just had to clear that up because it is possible.
You would want to root for that. The point I was trying to make was if you are the 4 seed, you're going to be paired up with an Ohio State or an Oregon or a Georgia or somebody that you probably don't want to play in the opening round. Those are the teams I want to
bring
avoid.
it on. Just bring it on. Why not?
Sure, bring it on, but I would not pick BYU in that game. If you get dumped down to 6 or 7, then you're hosting an opening round at Lavelle.
6 and 7,
I like that
though.
path a lot better.
Can you imagine BYU hosting Alabama in December at Lavelle Edwards Stadium?
Look, I was actually talking about this earlier in the week. It's funny you bring that up. Earlier in the week with my brother-in-law, his wife, she grew up in Alabama, and her family, they're all Alabama fans. And they were asking me, like, how crazy would it be if Bama played in Provo in a playoff game? And I thought to myself, that is wild because Matt and I went to the BYU San Diego State game in 2020. That was around the time when the playoff will be played. That was freezing. And I got to think that Alabama's not used to the cold. So if an SEC team had to come to Provo for a playoff game, altitude,
and BYU will have played
weather,
a couple games late November at home.
I'm telling you, man, that could be. Look, I want to see BYU get as far as they can. If
I
they
don't
can get
see
to the
them
playoff.
going to a national championship, though.
But, man, I'd love to see this team in the playoff. I think that's very doable. I mean, because you just got to win your league, and you're definitely in.
Yep.
Big 12 champ is going to be in, but it just matters what seed they would be. I would like to think that if you went 12-0
Who
or 13-0.
would join me in rioting in the streets if an undefeated BYU was not a top 4 seed and Boise State jumped them with a loss in the Mountain West, which got rated by the Pac-2?
I know.
Okay?
It would be
help
wild.
me make that make any sense.
BYU is getting slept on quite a bit. I've said it before on our sibling station, The Zone, that BYU should be ranked higher than Bama right now, and people don't agree with that. But it's just you're getting caught up with Bama with their recruiting rankings. That's like, believe me, I love the recruiting rankings, and I full-heartedly believe in them. But the thing is, you cannot base the success of a team on just simply they've got 5 stars, they've got 3 stars. Like, BYU is outperforming their recruiting rankings. It's impressive. You got to give them credit. There's a lot of athletes on that BYU team that are long range. You mean to tell me if Isaiah Glasker hit the transfer portal, that guy wouldn't be wanted by like 40 Power 4 schools?
Totally.
That dude's a legit athlete. That he was what, a 2-3-star prospect as a wide receiver? You can't measure it solely based on recruiting rankings, and that's why I think a lot of these media members, when they do the AP Top 25, they're getting caught up, well, Bama's got a bunch of 5 stars. BYU's got a bunch of 3 stars. So I'm going to put BYU at 13. Big 12's no good. SEC makes $75 million a year in media rights. What are we talking about? Are we watching between the lines or not? And BYU's a good football team. They deserve to be higher right now.
Stay here, Nate. Stay here, Allie. They were at the game. I want to get you guys' thoughts on the vibe, the atmosphere down in Provo. But right now, Mitch, let's talk about Beehive Meals. This award-winning service, they've been recognized as the best in local meal delivery, winning the prestigious Best of State Award for 3 consecutive years. Additionally, Beehive Meals has earned national acclaim as one of the fastest-growing companies, making its mark on the top 5,000 list. These guys are legit, and I've really enjoyed experiencing life with Beehive Meals because they've definitely made my life easier.
When we get to closer to Halloween, it feels like soup season. You know, the days are
my
shorter.
wife lives for soup season.
See, my wife hates soup, but she's become a fan of the Beehive Meals soup because listen to this menu: beef stew, cheesy ham and potato soup. That's my favorite. I love a good potato soup and the cheesy
chicken
ham
enoki.
and potato.
Do not sleep on chicken enoki.
I haven't tried that one yet. I need to.
Chicken enoki soup is
that
elite.
hitting? Is that hitting nice?
Oh, yeah.
Chicken enchilada soup, home-style chili, tomato, tortellini soup. Look, I could go on and on. It's a great menu in October. And then, obviously, the family-style menu, barbecue chicken, carne asada, cheeseburger mac. I love the cheeseburger mac. Beehive Meals. Go to beehivemeals.com. They can get an order delivered to your home. They make it quick, easy, simple for you. beehivemeals.com.
Let's take a break. We'll get some thoughts and reactions from a wild scene at LaVell Edwards Stadium last night after this. Welcome back in Cougar Sports Saturday. It's brought to you by Any Hour Electrical, Plumbing, Heating, and Air. The 4 of us of Cougar Sports Saturday, myself, Mitch, Nate, and Allie, we were all there last night. Nate was the only one, though, who had to wear a winter coat and to stand out in that cold. First off, how cold was it? And then second off, just walk me through your thoughts on the final drive and just the sights, the sounds, the feelings inside that stadium.
You know, I wasn't that cold. I was braced. I was ready for it, man. I had my Nike Pro leggings underneath my sweats, and I had a long sleeve and a hoodie and a coat. I didn't think it was that bad, though. I think just because it was dry, there wasn't a whole lot of wind, I don't think it was terrible. Environment-wise, it was a lot of fun. I was kind of complaining on Twitter about the drone show because I was, BYU teases early about being in your seats by 8 o'clock, and I'm thinking, there's going to be a flyover.
I did think Greg Wrubell gassed up that drone show a little too much on the post game.
I thought it was legit.
It was legit, but it wasn't the 8th wonder of the world.
Yeah,
okay.
It was better than I thought
fair.
it was going to be, but it wasn't a flyover. Like, I thought a flyover would have been sweet.
Like, after this show, I'm typing up an article on that drone show. It was pretty epic.
I love drones.
It was
I thought it was great. It was a nice touch. It was just that, nice touch.
My dad, who does not get, phased by much of that stuff, he was like, this drone show is awesome. I'm like, I'm with you. I think it was that Cougar Club logo that kind of like, ooh, that's
Can I
like chef's
nitpick the
kiss.
drone show? It wasn't high enough on the south end zone. It was blocked for, I think, a lot of people.
Yeah,
It's okay.
it was blocked for me.
Allie, intern Allie, you were in the press box with us. What was going through your mind on that last drive, Allie?
I was wishing that I was down in the Rock. I wanted to be in there going crazy with everyone. It was awesome. The energy was just crazy.
She also didn't believe. Admit to all of us. You thought it was over.
I got a little worried, but I'm never doubting them ever again.
Fair. Okay, so back to the final drive. 4th and 8. Did you feel like it was over?
I thought so. I mean, my dad turns to me and he's like, I think this is it.
That's so BYU fan. And I respect
it's
it.
over.
And Allie had the same feeling. Like, I look, everyone had it. Everyone, I think, thought just, like, what Kalani BYU team had examples
I
of
didn't
getting
believe
it
after
done.
the Retzlaff scramble still. I'm like, they got a chance, but, like, I'm not going to go there.
The last sub-minute comeback from BYU was what, Nebraska?
Gosh, it certainly feels that way off the top of your head.
That's what they said in the postgame on Greg's show last night. Was the last time that
Boise
BYU
State
came back
the week after
with a touchdown in the final minute and a half was
I think
Nebraska.
that one was like 159, I
Okay.
think, and then there was still some time where kind of Cougar got a pick late,
Right.
but it was Nebraska. So it's been almost a decade since you've had a win like that.
When did you start to believe? When did
once Lassiter crossed the goal line, he catches the ball at the 10, and everybody's thinking, you got to break a tackle, because if not, you've got to call a quick timeout, and then you're out of timeouts for the next 15, 20 seconds. But man, I think
you would have had had maybe 12 or 13. Take a timeout, 2 cracks at the end zone.
Yeah, and I think just because of all that anxiety and all the buildup, that's probably like the loudest I've heard the stadium since probably Boise State in 2015.
Louder than Kansas State.
I think so, just because Kansas State was different, because it was more like keep your foot on their throat type of emotion of like, we can't let up. I think it was a similar one for Utah in 2021 where there's just a lot of emotion behind it. But that's the first time since, I was just looking around the stadium after he scored and everybody's jumping up and down. And I think I can think of 3 times in BYU Stadium where I remember looking around and being like, wow, this is crazy. It was 2001 Utah with Luke Staley going down the sideline and the place just jumping, going nuts. 2015 Boise with Juergens and then
Tanner.
Tanner and then Nakua, and then this one.
Good stuff, Nate and intern Allie. We will talk to you guys more a little bit later in the show about your thoughts on this game and this season. We got to take a break, though. Cougar Sports Saturday brought to you by Any Hour Electrical Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Val Hell, former BYU AD and author of Out of the Blue, coming up next.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete and another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for 3. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Hour number 3 is off and running here on Cougar Sports Saturday. These days are so much fun. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte with you. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, Matt. I was talking to going into the game yesterday, heading down to Provo from Murray, and I was leaving early, around like 3:30 p.m. just to beat the traffic, because you're dealing with game day traffic, and then
Wait. 3:30 you left for the game at 8:15?
For an 8:15 game, yeah.
Dang.
Because you just
the traffic.
Once 4 o'clock hits on a Friday, a little bit earlier, it's like
I feel like
there's
traffic 24/7. I don't even think the 4 o'clock rule even works anymore.
I know, but I was, it was. I was talking with my wife, and she's like, she knew I was leaving, but she's like, man, it's gonna be a long day, and I'm thinking, yeah, 12-hour day, but you know what? Think about all the hours, the time we spend talking about these 12 games. It's like, you know what? 14-hour day covering BYU football. That's a good day at the office, man. And that makes it a lot of fun. And it's a lot of fun to see the excitement coming through Cougar Nation in this game, because I couldn't help but think of Cougar fans too after last night, because, BYU fans have gone through a lot and they don't get many wins like that. Look, they've always had good wins as far as like beating a K-State, beating a Tennessee, beating a USC, but just to win like that, the teams don't do that very often. And I just think that's the messaging of that's got to hit home, or that is not the norm, where you have a team come together late, only 73 seconds, and you get a quarterback who no one's ever viewed as some all-time world beater, and he was clutch. And, that was the thing that plagued John Beck, the guy that's mentoring Jake Retzlaff. People said, he don't have it. He can't get it done. Jake Retzlaff got it done and sets up BYU for everything that's in front of him the rest of the way this season.
Yeah, well said. All right, let's get out to the phone line. We've had a lot of great guests throughout this show, and we got another great one right now. He is former BYU AD, Val Hale, and author of the book, Out of the Blue.
Awesome book.
Before we get to the book, Val, and we will, just some thoughts on that crazy game last night.
It was absolutely stunning and exciting, and I saw some people leaving when Oklahoma State scored, and I was tempted to beat the traffic too, but fortunately I stayed, and will always be glad I did. It was spectacular, and the great teams. If you look at the '84 team, they had 3 games they had to hang on and win, in similar fashion. The Hawaii game, Kyle Morrell had to make that great leap to save what probably would have been, they would have gone on to win in all likelihood, the Rainbow Warriors. And then against Wyoming a few weeks later, BYU was trailing and had to come back and win, score a touchdown with about 4 minutes to go and ended up winning by 3. And then, of course, the Michigan game and the bowl game, they came down and Bosco threw the pass to Kelly Smith toward the end of the game. The great teams find a way to win those games. I think most of the great teams have those days when they're not maybe on their A game or they're in a tight game, and they find a way to win. And that's what came to my mind yesterday when we won that game. This could be a magical season because you've got to win these games to have those type of years happen. Really fun.
And there seems to be, Val, some parallels between this team and the 1984 squad where both entered the year low expectations. People forget that 84 team, I believe, wasn't picked to win the WAC that year, and new quarterback with Robbie Bosco. Jake had low expectations coming in, and they're kind of taking the nation by storm.
Yeah, they weren't. The 84 team was not ranked preseason, and they just kept making believers out of people week after week. And, it's fun to see people around the country. You follow it on X, and there are people around the country that are jumping on the bandwagon that are starting to believe that there's something special to this team. And these are the magical years when, you just have to ride the wave while it lasts. It's really fun.
How much have you enjoyed, watching this team, and what do you feel like the strength is of this year's team?
Well, I think, up until last night, I thought it was the defense. I thought Jay Hill has done such a great job getting this defense ready every week. And, the thought came to my mind as the game started out in the first half. Oklahoma State had an extra week to prepare, and I wondered if they had put in a new wrinkle or something because – BYU's defense had been so well prepared in the previous games and just shut down teams, and Oklahoma State was kind of having their way, especially on the edges. When that quarterback could take the ball and go around the edge, I kept wondering, why wasn't BYU ready for that, or what's going on here? But, whatever the reason, the defense didn't necessarily have its best game yesterday. But so far this season, they've been, I think, in my mind, the pleasant surprise. And of course, Jake has played really well. He's had his share of interceptions, and but so did Ty Detmer and so did Steve Young. Back at those of us who are old enough to remember those guys, I remember when Ty Detmer went to Wyoming as a freshman and threw 5 interceptions in that game. And Steve Young goes down to Georgia, probably the biggest game in our history to that point. Their top 5 team, Herschel Walker, wins the Heisman Trophy that year. Steve Young throws 6 interceptions, and we're still leading the game with about 4 minutes to go and barely end up losing to those guys. But, those things happen. Even the great players throw interceptions. So Jake's making progress. I really can see it almost every week, and that last throw he made was phenomenal. He stood in the pocket, and I almost started panicking because I thought it would collapse any second. And then he just delivered a strike. And, you got to hand it to Lassiter, too. He's always been good at after the catch yards, and he left that one guy's jockstrap on the field, as he cut back inside and just got in the end zone. That was amazing.
Talking with former BYU athletic director Val Hell. He's the author of Out of the Blue, an awesome book, an insider's look at the rise of BYU athletics. Val, you and I were at a Macy's in American Fork recently, and you gave me the chance to dive into this book. It is an outstanding book, and if I'm not mistaken, you've got a special for our KSL listeners today to take advantage of getting this book. Yeah,
the Matt and Mitch special, and thanks to KSL, I decided to lower the price on my website to $11.60 in honor of KSL and you guys. And so for today only, if you go on out of the BYUblue.com is the website. It's $11.60. It's normally $13.99 on there, but because you guys are having me on the show, I thought I'd do the old KSL and Mitch and Matt special. So
love it.
Anyway, there you go.
That's fantastic. Thanks. Cougar Nation's going to take advantage of that. What's a moment or two from the book that maybe BYU fans don't know very well that you think would really pique their interest and that you could share with us right now?
Yeah, well, I try to tell stories that are behind the scenes. This book is a behind the scenes book. So, for instance, at one point in time, BYU, somewhere in the administration, was having conversation with Lavelle about having him be both the athletic director and the football coach. And this was in the probably early 90s era. And, I found out about it because I was driving with him to Salt Lake to a luncheon, and he leaned over to me and said, "Hey, I'm having some talks about maybe being becoming the athletic director in addition to being coach. If I do that, I'm not going to have time to do both jobs. So would you oversee the day-to-day operations for the athletic department?" And I was just kind of a little bit in shock about it. And I told him, sure, I'd be happy to do that if that's what you want me to do. And it never did materialize, but, there were conversations at that point about having him do that. Those are the type of stories that I share. I share the story of trying to find Lavelle's replacement. And it ultimately came down to two people, Andy Reid and Gary Croton.
Wow.
And I talk about the that whole situation and how that all unfolded. So things like that I think are kind of fun. I wrote the book because over the years I've talked to friends and I tell them stories and they say, you need to write a book. You need to put these experiences down in writing. And so finally when I retired, I went on a mission. We got home and I thought might as well sit down and start writing now. And it took me about a year, but it was a lot of fun to go back and do some research and look through my journals and just search back in my mind at all the fun things that had happened at BYU. And I could have written 5 volumes. I really easily could have written 5 volumes, but I decided, hey, you know what? I'm just going to focus on these issues for now, and maybe I'll come back and write another volume later.
I hope you write another volume because there's just so much good stuff. And I mean, just to follow up, I love some of the insider details about things like the indoor practice facility. Now it's just common practice. College football programs, especially in a power conference, they've got an indoor practice facility, but that facility that Kalani and his team practice in when the weather's, inclement weather, Lavelle didn't have that luxury when he's getting ready for, bowl games in 84 against Michigan. He was in the Smith Field House with that little 50-yard setup. Tell us a little bit about the indoor practice facility coming to be.
Yeah, when I became athletic director, I was looking through my files one day, and I pull out a memo Lavelle wrote in the early 80s to the administration asking for an indoor practice facility, or if not that, at least a patch of artificial turf that they could put outside a field where they could plow the snow off so they could get ready for bowl games. Obviously, that didn't happen in Lavelle's tenure, but we used to go into the annex, the small annex in the west of the Smith Field House, and I think, quite honestly, I believe that one of the reasons Lavelle didn't have a better bowl record was that we didn't have a great place for the team to prepare in those years. And finally, towards the end of Lavelle's career, we'd leave like a week and a half before the bowl game just to go to warm weather and practice. It was because it wasn't something we had an opportunity to do in Provo. So Lavelle, to his credit, and I say this in the book, Lavelle could have demanded an indoor practice facility. He could have gone to the administration and said, either you get an indoor practice facility or I'm gone. But that was not his nature. Lavelle was never one to make demands of his supervisors. And, he was a one in a billion type of coach. They just don't come like him anymore. And I tell the story about his salary at BYU and being recruited by other places and how he finally came to terms with the fact that, hey, I'm going to just be in Provo and I'm not going to worry about what other coaches are making and I'm not going to entertain other offers. I'm just going to be happy and live in Provo with Patty. And he told me he did that for his mental health. And, you know, BYU was so fortunate to have him in that role.
Val, since you bring up Lavelle, and we know you had a close association and relationship with Lavelle, when you look at Kalani, and Kalani references Lavelle all the time, what kind of similarities do you see between those two BYU coaches?
Well, absolutely. When I see Kalani, the way he responds, the way he interacts, the way he handles pressure, it reminds me so much of Lavelle. And quite frankly, the same thing with Kyle Whittingham. You know, I see Lavelle reflected in them and the way they coach, the way they act. Lavelle was great, not because he was a great X's and O's coach, but because he was a fantastic people person. And I think Kalani has a lot of the same traits. Kalani, if you notice the other coaches, they love Kalani. They absolutely love him. And Lavelle was the same way. I really believe that one of the reasons BYU won the national championship in '84, despite all odds, was because the coaches loved Lavelle and they didn't like Barry Switzer. And when it came down to, you know, voting for Lavelle as number one or Barry Switzer as number one, most of the coaches wanted to reward Lavelle because they loved him. And I don't know that we would have got that, you know, been able to get over the hump and get that national championship if Lavelle hadn't been so dearly beloved by everybody in the coaching ranks. The media loved him, and it gave us an edge. It gave us probably the edge that we needed to actually, you know, get that number one ranking. And that's just the way he was throughout his career. And I see the same thing with Kalani, the way he interacts with the other coaches. They all like him. They think he's a quality person. And that carries a lot of weight in the coaching business.
Talk with Val Hell for a few more moments here on KSL News Radio, Cougar Sports Saturday. Again, author of Out of the Blue. You can get his book today, $11.60 here today only, so pick it up, Out of the Blue. And I love the book, too, the depth of it, because as someone who grew up a BYU fan, and even the tidbits about HBR.net, Cougar Sports Line, there's just so much depth and passion behind this. I mean, this BYU Sports is your passion.
Oh, yeah. It was, you know, I was like you. You remind me of me, you guys. You know, I lived and breathed and died BYU Sports. I moved here in 1969, went to my first BYU game, and I lived in Orem. I would walk to the football game sometime, and I read every article I could read, and it was my passion, my life. So I couldn't believe I finally got a job in BYU Athletics as the first marketing and publications coordinator, which, by the way, they've got like 25 people doing what I did back then now. And then to actually eventually become athletic director, I would have never dreamt that would happen to me, but it was a great run. Had a wonderful time.
Well, Val, we appreciate the time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Again, the book is outstanding. Can't recommend it enough. Out of the Blue, an insider's look at the rise of BYU athletics. Pick it up today, $11.60. And tell fans and listeners again what's the website where they can go to pick up Out of the Blue.
It's just www.outofthebYUblue.com.
Thank you. Val Hell, former BYU AD and author of Out of the Blue. Pick that book up today, $11.60 today only. Val, appreciate the time.
Thanks, gents. Great show, by the way.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's Val Hell here on KSL News Radio. Taking a break.
Before we get to that break, though, Beehive Meals, my friend, is something you need to pay attention to. Quite frankly, before we got involved with Beehive Meals, I wasn't aware of them, Mitch. My wife was. I wasn't. She's much more, I think, into social media and trends and staying current. And that's something I love about my wife, is that she can bring all these new things to the table. And I'm glad she brought Beehive Meals to my attention, because they've made my life so much easier. And life is so busy these days. With social media and technology and everything at our fingertips, a lot of blessings come from that, but it makes it hard to enjoy some of the simpler parts of life, because you always feel like you're on the go. Beehive Meals is a fantastic way to get a little time back into your life, and also, Mitch, to prioritize dinner time, because it's easy to just let that slide. You're on the go. This makes it easy to have a communal moment in your family.
Beehive Meals had humble beginnings pre-pandemic, and they navigated the pandemic in 2020, and now they're rising as one of the fastest-growing companies, making its mark on the Inc. 5000 list at $399, and named by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce as one of America's top small businesses. So you're supporting a local Utah-based business, and small businesses are so important to our economy and society at large, and Beehive Meals embodies that, and they've had so much success throughout the Intermountain West, reaching families in California, Oregon, Washington, Nebraska, New Mexico, everywhere around the Intermountain West. So beehivemeals.com, you can get those meals delivered straight to your house, quick, easy, beehivemeals.com.
Let's take a break. We'll get back to some reaction. Your text, 57500, reacting to the big win over Oklahoma State. Oh, man. I wish you guys could join us during the break sometime. We're having a great time talking about the app. What was that comment you read on Cougar Board?
I read on Cougar Board that someone said they felt like they went to Disneyland. And I'm like, you know what? How awesome is that? The atmosphere at BYU games has been off the charts. Even last night, I was just blown away by the production and the overall value. I mean, because we were talking in the break, growing up as kids, it was just the game. And that was college football in general. I think
except there were a few places as a kid. I remember when USC came and thumped us with Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush. Yeah. I loved it. Their band was playing and marching around the stadium, cool. But that wasn't the normal. That wasn't regular,
right? And it was it's cool to see just BYU becoming a thing, where it's becoming you don't want to mess with BYU at night. Like, that's becoming a thing, a talking point in college football, and it's pretty fun to see. And I just think that you really created a generation of BYU fans last night. Yeah. That's pretty cool because, look, in the era of eyeballs and whatever the next phase of college football becomes, you want these people that when they're in their 30s and they're getting careers, they're spending money back into BYU, and I think that's just pretty cool.
Can we just, for those on the YouTube stream though, can we wait the Star Wars after you successfully get off the field? Dun, 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 dun. I missed that.
Internally's going, this is such boomer energy.
Internally, do you remember when they would play, "You shall not
She does pass. Not, Matt. She does not. Let's take a break. On the other side, news, traffic, and weather. We'll get to the blueprint next.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for three. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back in to Cougar Sports Saturday, brought to you by Any Hour Electrical, Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Still taking text, 57500. We're breaking down a monumental win over Oklahoma State. Not because Oklahoma State is some great football team. They haven't won a game in the Big 12, Mitch, but it was monumental in that BYU showed us something that they hadn't showed us yet before, an ability to win when they don't play good football. Defensively, not great. Offensively, way too many turnovers in that game. I mean, that first turnover by Jake was a bad decision because you had a field goal in the back pocket. You don't need to force that in. And what was that trick play call with Ropati?
Yeah.
Looked like that didn't make a lot of sense to me either, but yet they won. We can celebrate and revel in the moment that they put together a 1-minute drive to win the game, something you don't see all that often. That's what made it so special.
That's a good pull on the Ropati trick play that ended up in an interception. It's easy to forget those moments in the game because we were talking about it in one of the breaks earlier today. that 1 minute, last 73 seconds, that just consumes everything. Like that was only a minute 13, but it just had a lifetime worth of content and memories and thoughts and breakdown, and every step was just analyzed in those minute 13. So almost the rest of the game in some respects kind of gets forgotten at times. But yeah, that was a little bit too cute. BYU, oddly enough, they had 3 turnovers in this game yesterday, 2 of which coming out of timeouts. Those were play calls that they dialed up out of timeouts. That trick play with Rapati, I did not like that at all. And I love that BYU, part of their identity is they've got a book that's deep with specials. And every team now, you better be ready for a trick play or 2 from BYU because they're coming. But that was not the right spot. And just maybe not the right spot is not the way to put it, but not the right personnel. Rapati's never thrown a pass. And it should be his last pass. And no offense to the man. I mean, that's a tough spot, but he lobbed it up. It was ready to be picked.
And that's a hard spot, too, for a guy like him because the play call is throw it. He's not in that situation.
Right.
Like, ideally, you would have said, this play is blown up. We're just going to eat the play. But that's not what the play is intended to do. And so then at least it felt this way from my vantage point. It felt like, well, I have to throw this ball. I also thought there might have been a PI at the end of that, too, but nevertheless, I didn't love that. But normally we would spend segments worth breaking down what could have been, and yet what could have been is not the storyline. It's what actually happened with the win.
And I thought at the end of the first half, the decision to call a timeout with 3 seconds left from their own 44, I thought that was a bit odd. Like, especially when I'm thinking, just move on, go to the halftime break. And then it almost, for a second, felt like it was costly because Jake's left arm, shoulder, arm, he goes in the locker room and he's just holding it straight. And I'm thinking, everyone in the media, the press box was monitoring that sideline when BYU came out at the halftime break. And Jake looked fine. I mean, again, it was non-throwing side.
But that was a big play, too, because he doesn't make that tackle. Do they take that to the house? And then you're down 28-14. There was not a lot of guys left to make the play. It was like him, maybe a running back. I don't remember if it was LJ or Hinckley, and then like a lineman. But that very easily could have been returned for a touchdown.
And so he comes back out to begin the second half, and he's throwing the football, and Dr. Skylar Main, the guy with probably his Cougar fans that maybe don't get deep into the support staff, the guy with the mustache.
Yes.
But, yeah, he's doing a great job.
Cats and mustache.
Yes. He was monitoring Jake, and Jake was fine, and he played it out. He downplayed the injury, and so did Kalani in the postgame. But that was something that was just, and I'm curious to see maybe how he's feeling today because, we've seen in the past, like Sione Aimoa, he still got held out, the running back, had a great performance against K-State. All indications were he was fine, and then the adrenaline comes down. How do you feel today, the day after? So that'll be something that's kind of something to monitor. Same with Darius Lassiter, who acknowledged that he kind of dinged up his shoulder a couple drives before the game-winning drive against Oklahoma State, but a gritty win from this BYU football team that's just finding ways to get victories and never take that for granted because this Big 12 conference, we're watching action today around the league. It's a wild league. I mean, Kansas taking care of business right now, 28-7. Houston's terrible. BYU, should we just assume BYU is at least 8-0 because that senior day is going to be a win over the Cougs? Colorado's up 14-0, but Arizona's about to go into the end zone, it looks like. They've had issues with that this season as they get stopped at the line of scrimmage there. And then your upset pick, Baylor. Did you pick up Baylor? Did you end up picking them? In the show earlier today?
Yes, I think Baylor can win that game. Sawyer Robertson's playing good football.
7-0 up on Texas Tech right now. So BYU fans got to be pulling for that. Clear the deck, get everyone to lose games in the Big 12 except BYU, and that creates more of a margin for error for the Cougs.
Let's get Nate and Allie in here. I want to have a discussion about some of the, we focus so much on the final drive, and rightfully so, but there were so many other critical plays. I just want to kind of off the cuff here go through some plays we thought were really significant because I got one for you. I don't know. This is the first time I've thought of it, but it was a really heads-up play. So Jake takes off on the final drive. makes that cutback inside, gets to about the 35-yard line on the scramble. You have one timeout left, but you don't want to use it there. Calm, cool, collected, gathers the group together, clocks the ball. Contrast that against what we saw last week up in Eugene, where Ohio State really poor clock management on that final drive, and it cost them. They ran out of time before they could even take a crack at a field goal. So their ability to navigate the clock, some credit should be given to Kalani as well, taking that timeout quickly after Kibo was tackled in bounds. Great clock management on that final drive, because that could have been frantic and you could have lost time, and then who knows what happened. So that was really well executed by the offense.
That's a great pull, because Kalani had issues with that last year. Time management was not on the side of this coaching staff. They were poor in managing timeouts and clock management, and I like that pull, that shout out for that, because this coaching staff, they've done a nice job on all fronts and navigating the hype, and I just think that Kalani, you can't be down on that guy right now. I mean, he is doing a fantastic job with this BYU football program, as we've got producer Nate and intern Allie into the studio. Allie, what's some of the moments beyond just that final drive that stand out to you from BYU's memorable win over Oklahoma State last night?
Yeah, I think, as you guys have talked about earlier, I think LJ Martin definitely stood out. He had over 100 yards, and I don't know, nothing specific, but just his overall game, I thought he just played really well, and he stood out to me.
LJ, 20 carries, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. He looked brilliant, Matt, and, you know, it was the healthiest I think he's been since spring football. Before he suffered the shoulder injury, you could say probably the healthiest he's been since the SMU game, but LJ, clearly an RB1, but the nice thing is they've got depth. And the moment when Sione Aimoa comes back, though, you got Martin, you got Ropati, you got Moa. That's a good situation. Look, I was kind of skeptical a bit of Ropati, what he was going to do. I know you were high on him. I thought he looked good, too.
Yeah, he did. He had the highest yards per average of all the running backs, 7.8 yards per carry, 6 attempts for 47 yards. I think the impact of LJ can be explained by one statistic. BYU, which has struggled on third down all season long, 50%. Then you plug in the fourth down conversions, 7 of 12 against Oklahoma State. That's because they were in short yardage situations, because LJ was picking up good chunks on first and second.
Producer Nate Slack, what's some of the deep cuts that you've got from BYU's big win over the Pokes?
Yeah, so the last drive on defense, I was watching some of the players that were on the field for BYU, and I was surprised because we didn't see a lot of Tanner Wall in that possession. We didn't really see a lot of Michael Harper at all yesterday. But there were a number of times when Jonathan Cabea is taking big snaps on that last drive. Falateo Satawala.
He did that too, Cabea, against Baylor.
Yeah.
So this is becoming a trend where he's their backup nickel. If Jacob Robinson goes down, it's Cabea.
Yeah, he is. And Raider Mooney got a lot of snaps. Tommy Parasis kind of got cooked on one of those touchdowns that they had, Oklahoma State had last night. Kind of reminded me of the Baylor game as well, where he just kind of makes a wrong read, I think, and kind of, I mean,
he's a true freshman.
It's a freshman mistake, and that's going to happen.
The fact that he's got a scoop and score, a pick, he's going to be a good one. Him and Falatau are going to be awesome, but just the fact that they're in these games, and I think that can't be discussed enough, is despite, this 7-0 start, a lot of these young guys are getting valuable snaps. So continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had a post on X earlier this week about that. It's how many players are going to be returning next season.
Good point.
And you don't want to look too far ahead, because this has been a really fun season. You don't want to take away anything from that. But when you look at how many guys on, the defensive line is pretty much going to be new next year when it comes to starters. But the linebackers could all return. The safeties could all return. The wide receivers could return for the most part. It's a loaded team next season. So, again, you don't want to look too far ahead because you want to enjoy the ride right now. But it is fun to see a lot of these young guys playing big snaps.
Another deep cut. I'm just kind of trying to put the final drive behind and thinking about other significant moments. 2 really come to mind. Chase Roberts makes 2 of the biggest catches of the game, and one of them we don't even remember. But do you remember that crossing route where BYU had – the game was tied at 28. BYU facing a 3rd and 4 on their side of the field. Chase runs a little stutter out and makes a congested catch, gets the first down. That eventually leads to a field goal. That's another 3 and out, and the momentum goes back to Oklahoma State. Like, he had a couple massive grabs that extended drives in that game, and they don't result in Chase Roberts' touchdown, so you forget them, but he was clutch on critical downs.
Nice pull there. How about the beginning of the third quarter? Oklahoma State moves down the field, 48-yard field goal attempt, missed. All points are critical, especially in a game that ends up in a 3-point difference. So that was big, too, for BYU to get a stand because, again, Oklahoma State halftime lead, 21-14. Had they got up by 10, that's a different feel when you're not down one possession. So that was a big moment, too. And, BYU, bounced back. And I believe that next possession The next possession
was it the Keelan Marion post corner?
I believe so. And then that was the drive LJ Martin. No, LJ Martin hit the century mark on the touchdown. Then he tied it up, 5:51 remaining, and it was 21-all. So big sequence there. I mean, that's what, a 10-point swing. So it's a big moments for BYU all throughout that game that go beyond that final drive. Let's keep talking about it more as we wrap up today's show. It's been a fantastic show. Cougar Sports Saturday, Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte, taking our final timeout. We'll continue to talk more Cougar football next.
We're still breaking down this big win for one more segment, but before we get back to that, BeehiveMeals.com is a website you guys need to visit. It's Utah's best meal prep service delivered to your front door. 10 freezer meals prepped and delivered to your home each and every single month. There's multiple payment options. There's different serving sizes. And you know what I really love about Beehive Meals, Mitch? Is that it's not this meticulous mixture of like 30 ingredients and it takes you an hour to put together. You just throw it in the crock pot but you can add to it. If you want to have a side dish, make it. If you want to have bread or something else, throw it with it. And then the core meal can be served a bunch of different ways. So there's flexibility there, but yet it's easy and it tastes good.
The family style menu in October, barbecue chicken, breakfast casserole. You got versatility where you got some meals for dinner, lunch, obviously, and then, of course, breakfast with the breakfast casserole, sausage Alfredo, Parmesan honey pork roast, cheeseburger mac. That's one of my personal favorites. Carne asada, cracked chicken. I sound kind of cool when I tell my kids, like, hey, I'm cracked at this chicken. And then my son Lincoln's like, Dad, that's so old. What are you saying? But cracked chicken's good. All that's good at Beehive Meals, and the versatility too of these meals. You can do a lot of. They give you the kind of the foundation of the meal, and then you can kind of take it as you will with your dinner and your meals with your family. And it's quick, easy, and convenient.
Check them out, BeehiveMeals.com. Back to BYU's football, big win over Oklahoma State. Let's maybe quickly throw out some unsung heroes for this game because LJ. I wrote him as my MVP on a piece I did on KSLSports.com. Jake, Darius Lassiter, I think those guys are getting a lot of props. But who are some other maybe under-the-radar guys that you think were really impactful in that win, Mitch?
I thought Jack Kelly, it's hard to say he's under the radar or underrated. But he had a sack, and, man, the closing speed he had on one of his runs, or not one of his runs, on one of his tackles. I believe it was on Rangel.
It was a third down on Rangel, yep.
Yes, and Rangel clearly earlier in the game showed the speed and his ability to run. And the closing speed, once again, from Jack Kelly. He showed it against SMU's QB, Jennings. Jack Kelly is an elite athlete, and his size and measurables, you almost wonder, should we just appreciate this guy while you got him? Because he might be NFL bound here in a few months. He's playing such good football. So Jack Kelly's one for me. What about for you, Allie?
I'm going to say Isaiah Glasker. He had some good hits on Ollie Gordon. Definitely held it down on the defense when they struggled.
His vicious hits on Gordon made it so Gordon was like in and out, and really slowed him down because in that first quarter was like, my goodness, here we go again.
Yeah, I saw Ollie Gordon come out to the sideline, and the trainers like cut his T-shirt underneath. They took out his back plate for a moment. So I don't know what the official word was on the injuries he sustained, but it kind of looks like something with the back So it'll be interesting to see how if it holds up going forward, but he's probably feeling it today. They oddly enough stayed the night over this past night. They were at the Embassy Suites down in South Jordan, and they didn't fly back immediately after. They stayed the night, flew out this morning back to Stillwater. The Pokes did, and I'm sure Ollie and BYU's a physical football team. You are going to feel BYU after you get done playing with them. What about for you, Nate?
So this one's maybe too much of a deep cut. I'm going to go JoJo Phillips. He had a few drops early on in the game.
How could you?
I like this, though. I think I know where he's going.
I'm struggling with this because that should have been caught.
It should have been caught. Absolutely should have been caught. But I think what it does is it gets the defense going, hey, this guy can actually play. He's beating us on these plays. He's getting open. And maybe some of the attention goes away from Chase Roberts on those quick slants that he converts those first downs. It goes away from Darius Lassiter. Even on that last touchdown play, the play is designed to go to JoJo Phillips. And that's kind of crazy because you don't think of a freshman being the guy who's supposed to get the ball in those types of situations, and he did.
That's my thought when you said his name, because I thought that was noteworthy when Darius revealed that it was intentional or initially designed for JoJo. Redshirt freshman JoJo Phillips getting the call late in the game? That speaks volumes about how Roderick, Kalani, this coaching staff view him. We got to talk about him now as a future wide receiver one, and that discussion might have to be coming up potentially next year. Lasser's gone after this season. Roberts, we'll see what he decides after the season with – maybe he kicks the tires on the NFL. I think he'd be wise to come back. But, that's the trajectory now. Clutch moments, late in game, they think highly of JoJo Phillips.
Here's another one. This isn't a deep cut, but I think he deserves a lot more praise than he's been getting. Bruce Mitchell.
Yes.
We don't talk about him. We don't notice him. There hasn't been one bad snap. The run game has been the best that it's been the past 2 games. Bruce Mitchell starting those games. And look, I want to see Connor Pay back. Maybe Bruce slides over to Reichert. I don't know. But Bruce has filled in nicely because coming into the season, I thought there's one offensive lineman injury you just can't have.
Right.
Connor Pay. I don't see anyone replacing him, and yet Bruce Mitchell has filled in beautifully.
And you've got your center of the future now. I think that's what's exciting, too, because he's a redshirt sophomore, a lot of years ahead of him. Staying along the offensive line, what about Caleb Etienne? Emotional game for him. Gundy basically said, Caleb, you lost your job. See you, bud. Deuces. Didn't care that you started 13 games. You're gone. Move on. He comes BYU, and we all know what happened last year. It was not good. It was bad, where he wasn't playable in stretches. And for him to never waver on coming back to BYU and sticking through it, love that moment for Caleb Etienne last night.
Yeah, that's been one of the cool things, too, is we get to know these guys, talking to them after practices and kind of getting to know their families. He's sharing pictures on the BYU football social media pages in the summer, going to Splash Summit with his son and Bohannon's son. You forget these are real people, and to see him overcome a transfer issue, or not really an issue, but he gets benched at Oklahoma State, and then Gundy has those comments about him. He really wanted that game really bad, and it's kind of cool to see him actually get that done.
It was pretty special, and there was video of him out in the field, and you could tell this win meant a lot to him. And even Darius in the post game said that it was a great moment for Caleb Etienne. Look, sometimes the coaches downplay the media narratives, we're not buying into revenge, we're not buying into this. Look, we ask these questions in the media because it's human nature. You want to get back at someone when they took you down. And, Mike Gundy took down Caleb Etienne, basically said, you're not good enough. Basically benched him in that spring ball. And so it was a great moment for him. Great moment for the BYU offensive line, which I don't think they had their best game. A little bit more pressures given up to Jake Retzlaff this past week compared to the Arizona game. And that's what's exciting, guys, is that they're 7-0, and there's room to grow. And I think that the schedule sets up great. Real quick snapshot. We'll get to Monday night with Cougar Nation, but UCF next week. We'll find out a kick time tomorrow, but you got to like BYU's chances in this one going to UCF.
Yeah, UCF, what is it, 7 players that have entered the transfer
6 or 7.
portal?
Mm-hmm.
That does not speak well about the vibes and the culture of that program right now.
Including their star kicker, the guy that had a game winner against Boise. He leaves.
You weren't hearing that from Oklahoma State. Even though they were 0-3 and they had a lot of issues and their offense was bad, you weren't hearing a complete breakdown of the culture. So Whenever you hear people are bailing ship in the middle of the year, that doesn't speak as a team that could rally the troops. And even though if they're shorthanded like Oklahoma State was, are they going to have the fight and the determination to try and get a win? Feels like UCF is on the verge of shutting down for the season.
If BYU fans are looking for a game to watch today, 5:30 UCF Iowa State. One, because Iowa State, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing if Iowa State took an L, make BYU the clear-cut number one team in the Big 12, but also get some intel on this UCF team and see how they compete. Big thanks to everyone. Big thanks to producer Nate, intern Allie, Matt Baiamonte. This has been a fun week. It's been a fun show here on Cougar Sports Saturday. BYU, again, gets it done over the Oklahoma State Cowboys, 38-35. Again, Monday night, we'll have Cougar Nation, 6 to 7, take your phone calls. We'll to be determined on what our coverage looks like on Saturday for UCF, but Matt and I will be out there in Orlando getting you ready for the Cougs and the Knights.
Yeah, we'll have the coverage from Orlando. I'm looking forward to getting back to the warm weather. It was so drastic.
Just 2 days of
it was so
mild,
drastic.
rainy
it's not
temps.
That I don't like the cold weather anyways, but like to go, we were, dude,
you were in the box last night. I don't want to hear that.
Okay, 7 days ago, though. Did you get a sunburn? Were you sweating your butt off?
Oh, I was sweating. My wife was complaining the entire time, and then yesterday she was like, you know what, it's cold.
From heat complaints to cold complaints. That's what I'm talking about. Get me back to that nice Atlantic coast humidity, a little bit of heat.
It is good for the skin. It does feel good.
It's great for the skin. All right. That'll be all for today. We'll see you next week. Take care.